What's going on, everybody? It's Slayer, back here again with another video. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm nearing 4 months of sobriety, and I make these videos not only to help myself stay sober, but to help you guys out there stay sober as well. And that's exactly what this has been doing, man. I've said it before, your guys' comments, your guys' feedback, it helps me more than you know. You know, the words of encouragement, all of it. And I know that I'm helping you guys, and that alone is a blessing and something that I'm very thankful for, and it makes me very happy. For this video, guys, I actually thought that I would tell you guys the first time that I ever got intoxicated. And there was a couple times leading up to this, like the typical, you know, still a couple beers, you know, but nothing really. Never really drank enough to feel anything. My household, when I was growing up for a long time, was a party house. It was mostly my mom. My dad really wasn't into the drinking scene or anything like that, but my mom, for a long time, every weekend, you know, like clockwork, there was parties being thrown. And maybe not the most appropriate parties for young people like myself at the time to be at. So there was always, you know, I grew up around alcohol. Alcohol was normal. It was very glorified, you know, in my household. I went back and forth when I was younger between hating alcohol because I had seen what it had done to my family, my brothers and stuff. So there was part of me that hated it, but then there was part of me that felt like, well, my family's doing it, so why can't I do it as well? So yeah, man, there was the typical just young, dumb shit of stealing, like, you know, your parents' alcohol and shit, but nothing, like I said, a couple beers, nothing significant. I remember we stole a Corona one time, me and my cousin, because me and my cousin, shout out to you, shout out to my cousin. I don't know if you'll ever watch my videos, but I miss you, man, and I hope that you're doing well out there. We were like this growing up. Me and him were best friends. He was more of a brother than my cousin. But yeah, I remember we stole a Corona one time. We took like one sip out of that shit and like poured it down the drain. We were like, how can people drink this? But the very first time that I ever drank, man, and got very intoxicated and, well, realized that I enjoyed drinking more than I probably should, was, you know, typical shit. You know, I was like 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, you know, high school friends. And, you know, when I hit the age of about 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, I mean, all those years, man, that's when I kind of started turning into a rebel, if you want to call it that. I don't even know what you want to call it, but that's when I started to bloom. I started to, even though I had major issues, it's like I was starting to, you know, come out of my shell a little bit and run wild. And instead of, you know, sitting secluded to show how much I'm hurt, I'm just gonna run wild and just distract myself all the time. I'm sure you guys can probably relate to that. And so yeah, man, I just started, you know, we started partying. Weed was introduced. I'll have to make a video on the very first time that I smoked weed. And I've pointed this out before, guys. I was a heavy pot smoker before I ever became an alcoholic. I was a stoner, a pothead to the T, all of that before the alcohol got introduced. But I remember one night we were hanging out with some friends, me and my cousin, and one of our friends, she had an older sister, because none of us at the time were old enough to buy alcohol, but this particular friend, she had an older sister. And this chick that I'm talking about, man, she was wild. Shout out to you. If you ever watch this video, I'm sure you know that I'm talking about you. You were wild. Anyways, so yeah, she had an older sister. I think she was like 26 at the time. I don't know, 30. I have no clue how old she was. And we wanted to party one night, man. And so we ended up having her sister buy us a couple sleeves of fireball shooters. Man, those fucking shooters, man. I've said it before in other videos, those things should be banned. Ridiculous, man. That was the first thing that I really got drunk off of. That's pretty crazy. And this was at a time period where shooters really weren't the popular thing to be drinking. Nowadays, that's what everybody drinks. That's people's go-to. They're easy to hide, especially for an alcoholic. They're great for an alcoholic. But, so yeah, I remember she bought us a couple sleeves of shooters. We had drove up to this local park, and we had parked there. I remember me and my cousin were sitting in the back, and it was our friend, the girl that I was telling you guys about, and our other friend, another chick, that she was actually the chick that got me and my cousin stoned for the first time, so she was here as well. She was there for the first time I got stoned and drunk. Anyways, so yeah, we were chilling with them, and I remember at the time, you know, they started passing back the shooters, and I literally knew so little about, like, how much to drink, how much gets you drunk. I felt like at the time I'm looking at the shooter and I'm thinking to myself, holy fuck, that's a lot of alcohol. Isn't that ironic? Since, you know, in my bad days of alcoholism, I would just drink those things like they were water. But I remember looking at it, and me and my cousin were looking at each other like, fucking shit, man, we're supposed to chug this whole thing? We're supposed to drink this whole thing? And so it took us like fucking 10 minutes of just like hyping each other up. Like, yeah, man, you can do it. But of course we're trying to act cool so the chicks in front don't see us. You know, we got to act like we're badasses, you know, trying to, you know, pick up these ladies and stuff. When in reality, this was the beginning of my addiction and downfall. Really cool, right, Slayer? Anyways, so yeah, we're sitting there hyping each other up, and eventually, boom, I swing back and I take it. And he takes it. I remember thinking, man, that was nasty. But it wasn't that bad. We had Sprite chasers, I remember, and we took the Sprite chaser and we were like, that wasn't that bad. So it's like after we had you know, that experience, and to this day I cannot drink Fireball, by the way. Fireball is so fucking gross. That was my beginning drink when I first started drinking, and man, I just can't. You know, even in the later days of my alcoholism, I wasn't drinking fucking Fireball anymore. That shit's nasty. But anyways, so yeah, man, we drank that. And so I remember sitting there in the seat and having that warm feeling hit my stomach. And I remember even at that time being in love with that feeling. Just loving that warm, tingly kind of, I don't know, man. I loved it. I loved that warm feeling, and I noticed later on, again, later in the years of my alcoholism, that was something that I really became addicted to. And I noticed like a couple months ago when I ate something spicy, it kind of gave me that certain type of burn in my stomach, and it gave me a little bit of a trigger. I'm not even gonna lie. So yeah, man, I became addicted to that burn. And I remember liking that. My very first time drinking, I remember enjoying that. And after we took the first one and we saw that we could do it and we didn't know how much we could drink, we just started taking one after the next, after the next, after the next, after the next. And maybe you guys aren't going to believe this, but somehow it's a miracle. Neither one of us got sick that night. I think it was because our bodies were just so fresh at the time that, and this is the only thing I can think, our livers and everything were just so fresh that it's like we could just handle that amount of alcohol without getting super sick. I don't know. I don't know how it honestly worked, but we ended up drinking like 8 or 9 each, and we sat in the car for a moment, and this was over like a 45-minute time span. That's a lot of alcohol, man, for people that have never drank. That's a lot of alcohol for anybody in general in a 45-minute time period. I remember we got out of the car to go take a piss. We were like, okay, we'll be right back. We're gonna go take a piss. You know, there were some trees by this park, and so we get out to head towards the trees. And man, as we were walking towards the trees, I remember just feeling like I was floating. I just felt like my feet had been lifted off the ground. All that anxiety that I would feel on a day-to-day basis that I had been suffering from for so long had been completely lifted. I remember we walked over by the trees, and me and my cousin looked at each other, and we just started giggling like little schoolgirls. And I knew right then and there, man, that I loved alcohol. I didn't know that I was going to become an alcoholic. I don't think any of us do, but I remember thinking, holy shit, man, I didn't know that this feeling existed. I didn't know that this was out there. And it was like opening the gates of hell to me, man. It was like opening Pandora's box. For the alcoholic, our first drink is like opening Pandora's box. It unleashes something that we weren't prepared for. And I've said it before, man, if I could go back and stop myself from ever having that first drink, I would. So I just wouldn't ever know what that feeling is of being drunk, you know? Because after we get sober, it's very easy to compare every little thing to how we would feel when we were intoxicated, and that's just not realistic, man. And I remember loving it. And the night carried on. We continued drinking. We hung out with those chicks. There's a couple more stories that I want to tell you guys about these particular girls that are just absolutely insane, and I think that it can teach some people out there a couple things. But I remember loving it, man. And I remember going home that night, going to sleep, and I woke up, no hangover. Neither one of us had a hangover. And there was no real urge to need to go do it again. But I remember thinking, like, I want to do that again. I want to do that again. And it took a while, man. There was a few years where it's like I kind of drank normally. And I think, like I've pointed out in the other videos, I think the main reason why I drank normally is because at the time I was so heavily into pot, and I was also not 21. So I think that it's like I've said, it kept it at bay. It didn't allow me to really fall full force into my addiction like what happened when I turned 21. When I turned 21 is when my addiction became full force, and, you know, I really started to go downhill. And yeah, man, and it's just so interesting looking back on that, because that was the beginning, you know? We're always chasing that first drunk. We're always chasing that first high, and I know you guys could agree. We're always running towards those beginning feelings that we got those first few times that we drank, those first few times that we smoked, those first few times that we did whatever. And it's never the same, man. It becomes a game of chasing the dragon. And what you come to realize after drinking for years and years and years, and all the destruction that it causes, is that it all turns around. Alcohol was my best friend for a long time, until it wasn't my best friend anymore. It worked for a long time until it just didn't work anymore, man. Are there times that I miss drinking in this near 4 months of sobriety? Yes, absolutely. But the feeling of accomplishment, the feeling of being clean and sober, having my family back, having myself back, opportunity is back in front of me, feeling like I reclaimed my life, feeling like I'm doing something good, not only for myself, but also for my God. And again, everybody has their own beliefs. But I do believe in God, and it's just a really good feeling. I do believe that there is an afterlife, and I think that the things that we do here, guys, really do count. And I don't think we're supposed to live life intoxicated 24/7, destroying ourselves. Our body is a temple, and this is a special place, and we should really try to enjoy our experience here sober and clear-headed. So yeah, man, that was the story of the first time that I was ever drunk, the first time that I ever actually got intoxicated. I was like 17, 18 years old, and that was the beginning, man. I want to tell you guys the stories of like the first time I smoked weed and all that type of stuff as well. And I regret it. At the end of the day, that's the point of this. I regret it. If I could go back and stop myself from ever picking up that blunt that I smoked, because that was the first thing I ever smoked when it came to weed, and I could stop myself and throw that fucking fireball shooter out the window or into a garbage can where it belongs, I would, man. Yeah, guys, just wanted to share that little story with you guys. I have tons of ideas and tons of video topics coming. I think you guys are really going to enjoy where this channel is going to go. So stay tuned, and until next time, guys, I love you guys. Stay safe, stay sober, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.